from a station working for you. This is breaking news from WRTV.
Best news in reference to 8951 Murrow Road. Be advised, another caller heard 10 shots from near the front of the entrance. Caller says possibly from inside. No further seen or heard. Less than 1 minute ago.
We continue to follow a horrific scene on the city's southwest side. 8 people killed by an active shooting at a FedEx ground facility near the airport. Thank you for joining us. I'm Megan Shin on this tough and tragic morning. We'll check in for your weather and traffic update with Todd Clausen in just a few minutes. But first, we need to check in with our Rafael Sanchez to get us up to speed on the still developing mass shooting in the city's southwest side. Raf.
Megan, people running for cover, people running for their lives. Chaos and fear overtook this scene, and when the gunfire was over, 8 people were found dead. I can tell you right now that police remain on the scene investigating this situation here at the FedEx ground building here on the city's southwest side. Let me show you exactly where we are reporting this morning. This situation continues to unfold as we continue to follow this breaking news story right here on WRTV. We are on the 8,000 block of Murrow Road. We're just about 3 miles away from Indianapolis International Airport. From here to the airport is just an 8-minute drive. But from this location where this is now unfolding, of course, people began calling 911 for help. Shortly after 11 p.m., police receiving calls from not only inside the building but outside, also receiving calls from the interstate system, people reporting that there was a situation unfolding inside of this building. We can also tell you from what sources are telling me that people inside the building were just hiding. They were in any place that they could, underneath the conveyor belts, in any corner of the building that they could, as they heard those gunshots erupt inside of that building. In the end, police are telling WRTV investigates that the suspect died by suicide. They are describing what they say a weapon was found by the man's body. That weapon is being described to WRTV investigates as a long gun. We'll continue to follow those developments throughout the morning as this story continues to unfold. Our focus is not only on the investigation. That's just part of the story. Our bigger focus is on the people, the families. And with that part of our coverage, now let's turn to WRTV's Troy Washington. Troy, what can you tell us?
Well, for those that are just joining us, we're here at the Holiday Inn Express on Stansted, and if you do have a loved one who works at that FedEx facility and you haven't heard from them, they want you to come here. They're actually answering a lot of the questions here, and maybe they can kind of guide you in the right direction. Now, for hours, a lot of the family members were here. They were waiting for answers just to find out what was going on with their loved ones, or even to learn if they were okay. So a lot of them showed up here at that Holiday Inn Express. It's near the airport on Stansted. If you're still looking for your loved one, they want you to come here. Maybe they can help lead you in the right direction or give you some answers. Now, as soon as I showed up around 1 a.m., I talked with the grandmother. She was in her car, and she was clearly worried as she started to tell me that she, on the way here, prayed the entire drive. Here's what she had to say.
I was listening to on the radio on her phone. I was putting on my clothes as soon as I heard it, and she was coming down the stairs. We got to go, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. I didn't ask her why. I just got my stuff and got in, and she told me. I said, oh, my God. So we're here to see. I hope, God, that he's not injured, and I hope a whole lot of other people are not injured either, but we don't know.
Now, a lot of these relatives, they have been waiting here for hours, and a lot of that started around midnight. A lot of people coming in here to the hotel, pacing, praying, worrying, wondering, just wanting some answers to their questions. And as we continue to learn more about these victims, I'm sure that we'll continue to learn more about some of the people who have not even been accounted for. Like I said, there's an investigation going on, and some of those employees were still being questioned. But here at the hotel, they've been fielding a lot of calls from people who are calling here and inquiring about where they should go and how they should get any answers to their questions. So again, I just want people to know, if you are searching for your loved one, they want you to come here to Stansted near the airport, the Holiday Inn Express. Back to you, Raphael.
A What heartbreak, what worry for so many families. And of course, Troy, we will keep on top of this developing situation with the families. Troy, thank you so much for that. The big question this morning is, who is the guy behind this mass shooting? And I have to tell you, working our sources, we don't have a name just yet. But you can imagine that in the next several hours or so, police will release that information. This remains an active investigation. And Kelsey, we've been watching social media. We've been watching our Twitter feeds and Facebook. That's the biggest question. Who is responsible? We just don't know a name just yet.
That's right, Rafael. We've put out several tweets this morning giving people updates. And the number one response we're getting is, who is it? And again, that's just something we don't know right now. The only thing we do know is that the gunman is a male. That's all we know. So we're expecting to hear more later from IMPD. We've had 2 press conferences so far. The first one at 1 a.m. and that was just 2 hours after the first 911 call. That's when Officer Janae Cook told us very little information. She just said that there was an active scene and that the alleged gunman had killed himself. So that's all we knew at 1 o'clock. Then at 3 o'clock, we heard more from Janae Cook, and she tells us that there were eight victims here pronounced dead at the scene with gunshot wounds.
Another caller heard 10 shots from near the front of the entrance. Caller says possibly from inside.
Because this is a sight that no one should ever have to see.
I'm just happy he's alive. I'm happy he's okay. Again, like you said, condolences to everybody else's families, but as far as mine, I'm happy he's fine.
I'm trying to think about who in the world would do some stuff like that. I mean, there's enough shootings going on in this world, but we don't need this. For what? It don't make any sense.
It's a dark day that Indianapolis will not soon forget. Thank you for your time on this afternoon. I'm Megan Shen. And the tragedy happened just over 12 hours ago at one of the busiest work sites here in Indiana. 8 people are dead following the country's latest mass shooting, and the gunfire at the FedEx facility on the southwest side is one of the worst mass shootings ever in our city. Within the past hours or so, we've learned more about what happened at this FedEx facility. We're also watching as families of people who work there wait anxiously to find out whether loved ones are okay. Coming up, our Megan Sanctorum is at the hotel where those families have gathered. But first, our Nikki Dementri is live this midday with what investigators and the mayor had to say just a short time ago. Nikki.
Megan, emotions were high here in this room as we stand here really just a few miles away from that FedEx ground facility where everything unfolded around 11 on Thursday night. We do know at this moment that scene is still an active crime scene. The 8 victims are still on scene there. They are not being identified at this moment in time. What we also know from this briefing this morning, police told us that it appears the shooter drove to the facility, got out of his car, and just started shooting randomly. He shot outside and then made his way inside. When they arrived is when they found him inside. Again, there are many questions left unanswered at this moment in time. I want to walk you through again what we do know right now and what's developing at this hour. Police say when they arrived around 11, the shooting was already over. The suspect was found inside and believed to have died by suicide. A rifle was found with the shooter, but it's not clear the specifics of the weapon at this point. And out of the 8 victims, 4 were found outside and 4 were found inside. Again, police say the shooter pulled up to the FedEx facility, got out of his car, and just began randomly shooting there. As the investigation continues, the coroner's office has not been able to get on scene to start that lengthy process of the victims, notifying their families, as well as positively identifying, I should say, the shooter there. And the FBI is assisting IMPD and others in the investigation at this hour.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5. Streaming now.
Dispatch units in reference to 8951 Murrow Road. Be advised, another caller heard 10 shots from near the front of the entrance. Caller says possibly from inside. No further seen or heard. Less than 1 minute ago.
Rapid deadly fire rings out at one of the city's biggest employers.
Just something in my gut told me something was wrong tonight. I just didn't know what.
Friends and family of workers inside knowing something was wrong, but waiting on answers.
I'm confused. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I don't even know how to act. I don't know to be mad, cry, scream. I don't know.
Some reunited, some still waiting, all trying to keep faith in the face of shattered peace.
I'm praying for the best.
Heartbreak in the Hoosier State, another mass shooting in the United States, this one here in Indiana.
And tonight, families are waiting for answers after the deaths of 8 people at a FedEx facility on the southwest side. 7 others were injured in the late night shooting, 5 of them sent to the hospital. Police say the suspect took his own life after the rampage, and police have now identified him as a former FedEx employee.
Well, to be clear, this happened at the FedEx Ground Plainfield Operations Center on the 8900 block of Murrow Road, just south of I-70. This is not the big FedEx hub on airport property.
And our Alyssa Donovan begins our team coverage live at the scene where the investigation is still underway. Alyssa, what do we know about the investigation right now?
You know what, Amanda, we're learning a little bit more each hour as this investigation continues. And as you said, that suspect has been identified, and that's really the latest information we have. That suspect identified as 19-year-old Brandon Scott Hull. And we do know, as you said, that he was a former employee at this FedEx facility. We're told he was an employee here back in fall of 2020. We don't know the manner in which he stopped working here, if he was fired or if he left on his own. We also know that law enforcement have had encounters with Hull in the past. Most recently, the FBI told us that in March of last year, Hull's mother contacted police to let them know she was worried about him committing suicide by cop. Hull was put on a mental health hold by IMPD, and a shotgun was seized at his house. At that time, FBI interviewed Hull based on what was found inside of his home, but they did determine after that assessment that there was no criminal ideation involved with Hull. And as you can see here on the scene, things are still very active. We have forensics on scene. We also know the coroner is now on scene. So a very active scene more than 12 hours after this incident occurred. Police and FBI are still working to piece together the details of what exactly happened here and a motive. And police tell us that the gunman drove to the facility and opened fire in the parking lot before heading inside. 4 of the 8 victims were found in the parking lot, the other 4 inside, along with the deceased suspect.
There was no confrontation with anyone that was there. There was no disturbance. There was no argument. He just appeared to randomly start shooting.
That's what witnesses told police when officers were called to the scene around 11 o'clock last night. By that time, the suspect's rampage had ended and he'd taken his own life. Police estimate the shooting happened in the span of just minutes. A rifle found at the scene. The shooting described by witnesses and law enforcement as chaotic. Officers who responded met with a tragic and horrific scene.
Our IMPD officers went towards danger, as they typically do. And when they arrived on the scene, they found something that really no one should see.
Families were shuttled to a nearby hotel where IMPD staff chaplain Orlando Jordan waited with them to learn if their loved ones were okay.
You know, it's difficult. You want to be able to share more and more information, but you don't have any information to give them, and so you just you try and pray, and you try to encourage them as much as possible.
Police believe that all survivors have been reunited with their families. The names of the victims have not been released, but we have learned that members of the Sikh community were among those killed in the shooting.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 11, streaming now.
I'm going to miss these people. I really am. These people didn't deserve it. These people truly didn't deserve it. Especially going out that way. Nobody should die by that. We're here to get a paycheck, but then we can keep on living, pay our bills, pay for groceries, and for somebody to come in here and just shoot up the place.
Co-workers, survivors, and family members are sharing their stories. now just 24 hours after a mass shooting at an Indianapolis FedEx facility that left 8 people dead. First at 11, we now know the names of those victims.
Yeah, investigators released that information at 8:15 this evening. They are identified as 32-year-old Matthew R. Alexander, 19-year-old Samaria Blackwell, 66-year-old Amarjeet Johal, 64-year-old Jasvinder Kaur, 68-year-old Jasvinder Singh, and 68-year-old Amarjeet Sekhan, 19-year-old Carly Smith, and 74-year-old John Weisert. Earlier, we talked to Mary Carol Weisert as she waited for information about her husband, John. He never returned home from work at the FedEx facility last night. Now he has been identified as one of the victims killed.
And the family of another victim killed, Amarjeet Johal, shared this picture of her with WRTV. Her grandson tells us it was her 66th birthday. And he shared a statement saying he is heartbroken. His grandmother is among those killed in this senseless shooting. He says several of his family members work at the facility and are traumatized, and they do not feel safe at work, at their place of worship, or anywhere. His message ends by saying, quote, "Enough is enough. Our community has been through enough trauma." And tonight, we are also learning more about some of the victims who survived that attack. WRTV's Cameron Riddle joins us live from the scene of the mass shooting on Murrow Road. Cameron.
Amanda, good evening. We are just across the street from the FedEx facility and that parking lot, which as of now, 24 hours later, it has been a crime scene for an entire 24-hour period. This is now the calmest this area has been since this time last night before that shooting, which we now know took the lives of 8 people and sent 5 more to the hospital. As you're seeing right now, that parking lot is a bit emptier than it had been earlier in this day after some of the employees or their family members had returned here to pick up their vehicles, which in many cases were actual evidence of the tragedy that happened. We were here for some of that, as some of those folks came back here to retrieve their cars. Among them was Corshawn Foster. He works here loading trucks, and so does his mother, who he tells us is one of the people who has been shot but has survived. The car that he drove off this lot in was heavily damaged with a bullet hole in the door and multiple windows completely shattered. He says his mother is recovering, but you can tell from the little bit of time that we spent talking with him, he is still very shaken up and simply just cannot believe what happened here in Indianapolis is real life.
I couldn't believe it was my mama who got shot. I didn't believe it until I saw her. Crazy.
Foster says he was just about to start his shift when he arrived here. He says at about 11:10. He knows that if he had been here just a few moments earlier, things could be very different tonight. With that said, he's happy his mother is recovering, but does not know if he will ever be able to return here to work. Amanda?
Cameron, I can only imagine what it's like to be back there as someone who worked there last night or works there in general. It has to be extremely sensitive. Are you seeing people even come this evening? You said it's calm and quiet, but are people coming back at all just to pay their respects or just pay tribute to what happened?
No, we've been out here all afternoon, and it has been quiet, and it's only getting quieter as the night goes on. But we did not see folks coming by. You know, occasionally 1 or 2 cars, people just coming to see because there was a lot of media here and lots of trucks, so activity along with the coroner vehicles. But you haven't seen folks come to put flowers or any type of thing like that where what we normally see after a tragedy like this. People staying away from this. This is a kind of a place that you have to really be intentional about coming here. It's not a place that you just kind of stop by on the way home because it's so secluded. But it has been quiet. Folks have not come by. We haven't seen anybody go in or out of that building. None of these trailers have moved. We know there was some activity earlier today, but this building has looked like this for the past several hours. And in fact, the only activity over there remains one of the police officers who has been there letting folks come in to get their cars and their belongings. As they come by, they stop and check with him. But other than that, this is literally the quietest this lot has been since this time last night before that shooting.